we're starting chapter 2, the trait of Midat Zehirut, the trait of vigilance, of a person being careful. And he says a person has to go out of it, take great care in all of his actions, pay attention to all the details, and to see if he's doing something good or not, so that he does not bring sakana, God forbid, danger to his neshama of, God forbid, losing his olam haba, or God forbid, bringing negativity or bringing bad things to his suffering, to his present life. And a person has to make sure not to fall into the stumbles and the pitfalls. He has to be careful and learn Torah and learn how to avoid all the potential obstacles that a person could go through in his life. And he says, logically, it makes sense that you should learn to overcome your Yetzer Hara, and you should learn what to watch out for, and what bad acts a person could fall into, and how to overcome them. He says, for example, can you imagine you send somebody on a message as a messenger, you send him, and he's blind, right? Or he closes his eyes, he walks in the street with eyes closed, and he thinks he'll be safe. What are you doing? What are you saying? How can you walk in the street eyes closed? It's a very dangerous place. You could fall into a manhole. You could get hit by a car. Somebody can come up to you and do something bad to you. So therefore he says, how can a person not learn Torah and not learn what it means to overcome different types of Yetzer Hara and different types of sins? And a person will say, no, don't worry, everything will be okay, nothing will happen to me, I'll be able to pass the test without learning, I'll be able to pass the test when they come, I'll show them who's boss. It's like a saying, I'll walk in the middle of the street with my eyes closed. How can a person do such a thing? You would think it's so crazy. It's nonsense. How can you talk like that? That's how a person has to feel when it comes to learning to be careful with his neshama. That's how a person has to go out of his way to make sure that his eyes are open. What opens our eyes is the Torah. We have to make sure to guard ourselves. And therefore he says, and if a person does not take these steps to guard himself and avoid the terrible danger of his neshama getting hurt from all the sins he could do, he says, then we're walking around like animals, just going by instincts, just going by how we feel in the moment. We're not planning ahead, we're not trying to protect ourselves, and we see the harm, yet we go into it. How does that make any sense? The famous Mashal, Rabbeinu Yonah, he says that a person, he has the ability to save himself, and he chooses not to. It's very foolish. He says there was 3 bandits who got caught, they got thrown in jail, and then one of them found a spoon, and they started digging out a hole under the jail cell, and they found a tunnel to get out, and the 2 of them decided to get out, and one guy decided to stay. And in the morning, when they found that the other 2 guys escaped, and the one guy stayed, they started beating up the guy who stayed in the jail cell. And he said, why are you beating me up? I'm a tzaddik. Look, I didn't run away, I stayed. And they said, you don't get it. Why are you in jail? We want you to stay in jail forever. We want you to be in jail and then eventually get out and become a normal person and go back to the real world. And you want to stay here and not go back to the real world? So of course we have to punish you. You didn't even get the point. So therefore a person, he also has to think to himself, I have the ability to learn. I have the ability to go and give a boost to my Yetzer Tov, to my good inclination, to overcome my evil inclination, and I choose not to. It's like you have the tunnel in front of you, the tunnel of light in front of you. You choose to stay. You choose not to escape. How could you do such a thing? And therefore, it makes no sense. Therefore, he says that a person has to make sure to put an effort to go out of his way to learn about how to give strength to his Yetzer Tov over his Yetzer Hara, and you do that by learning Torah, and you do that by doing self-assessment of your soul and knowing what's difficult for you and what's not. So if he says, if a person travels in this world without thinking, if am I going in the right way, am I going in the wrong way, what do I have to work on, what do I have to guard myself from, how do I overcome this sin that I always fall into? If you are not careful to do these things, you're like a blind man walking next to the river. You could fall, and you could, due to blindness, due to natural instinct, shutting your eyes and saying, Rabbi, better I don't know, Rabbi. This is for sure going to lead you into a pitfall, and the person has to make sure that Hashem gave us Yetzer Hara. He gave us the antidote, which is the Torah. If your iPhone is broken and is malfunctioning, what are you going to do? You're going to go to the person who created it. You're going to go and say, hey, fix it for me. Same thing with the Yetzer Hara. There's no way. People like to listen to these gurus. They like to listen to these motivational speakers, meaning goyim. They like to listen to them on all the social media platforms. And they say, well, they give me consciousness and they give me, outlook and perspective and all these things. At the end of the day, what's the surefire way to overcome Yetzer Hara? It is only through Torah. And the Torah tells us that Hashem says, I know I gave you a problem called Yetzer Hara. If it's giving you issues, come to me and you'll help you fix it. The Gemara Masechet Kedushin says if a person did not pray to Hashem to overcome his Yitzhara, there's no way you'll overcome it. He has so many tricks in his bag, you fell for it to him millions of times. What's going to make you succeed this time? Praying to Hashem and learning His Torah.